Today, we're going to talk about the scariest monster in Dungeons & Dragons. Something that you and I have experienced in real life. Don't know what I'm talking about? Well, come along for this journey. Have you ever been in a large room with lots of people, and yet you still felt like you were alone? You still felt like you were the only one in there. The only one in there that cared about you. The only one in there that knew that you were there, or cared to know that you were there. Have you ever been out in the wilderness on your own, with no one else around, only the sound of nature, and yet still feel alone? Have you ever been with a group of friends and you don't understand what joke that they're making and you feel kind of left out of it and you feel slightly alone? I know that not all of us always feel loneliness, and I know that not all of us feel the desire to express that we have been lonely. But it is definitely an emotion that kind of hits home, especially right now, with the fact that a lot of us can't come together and hang out. And that's why I have decided to pick the monster that I picked for the scariest monster in D&D, because it's something that you and I have experienced. Even if you don't want to admit that you've experienced it, you've experienced loneliness. The Sorrowsworn in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, there's a bunch of scary monsters there, but the lonely is the one that really gets to me. So the Sorrowsworn are specifically written for the Shadowfell. However, you don't have to keep them in the Shadowfell. The Sorrowsworn don't have to only manifest in the Shadowfell. They can completely manifest in the material plane if you so desire as a dungeon master. The lore for the lonely, just like most of the Sorrowsworn, they all kind of have a similar theme to them, is born on the first time that you are lonely. And that Sorrowsworn, the lonely, is going to follow you for the rest of your life every time you feel alone. When your character, your druid, who loves being out in nature, is now in Waterdeep and doesn't know a thing about what's going on, your druid and your ranger now feel lonely. Even though they're surrounded by more people than they've ever been, they are lonely. Your folk hero background bard who just loves being around people is now walking through the swamps with just a group of 5 people that he just met. He feels very lonely, even though he feels like he's the life of the party, and even though the druid and the ranger feel as if they are capable of handling themselves even around lots of people, they still feel lonely. And when you feel lonely, the lonely comes for you. This is not a creature that you can run from. This is not a creature that you can defeat. This is not a creature that you can just kill with a sword and make it go away. Yes, it will take physical damage, it will take the damages from your spells, your weapons, but you'll never kill it. It will always come back the next time you feel lonely. How many times have you felt lonely? Sure, maybe you don't feel lonely all the time. You're lucky enough to have friends. You're lucky enough to have family. You're lucky enough to have a game group that you get to go and play with all the time. But every once in a while you feel lonely. And that's the worst time. That one time that you feel lonely, that's the last time you want to be attacked by a monster, right? And yet, that is when you're most vulnerable, and that's when it strikes. The lonely is the scariest monster in Dungeons & Dragons because you can't beat it. It is born from you, born from your emotions, and it will follow you for the rest of your life. The only way to truly kill it is for you to somehow reach a state of consciousness, maybe a high-level wizard, or maybe in the afterlife, when you get to the point where you don't feel emotions anymore. So, you can make the excuse that there are some races and species in Dungeons & Dragons that does not feel the same emotions that maybe humans do, but tailor-made to each and every one of those species, there is something that they can feel that we can relate to as humans as lonely. This creature hits like a truck. It's a CR9, it's got a 60-foot reach, and you don't dare want to get anywhere near it. But the good news is, if you have a crafty DM who is willing to understand that this is the type of monster that you don't necessarily want to fight one-on-one with just weapons, but as a group, it should become less and less strong as the group surrounds the person that feels lonely, and you defeat it as a group. That person who manifested the lonely, the one who was lonely, is no longer lonely when he sees his friends pick up their shields and pick up their wands to help defeat this monster. This is the scariest monster in the world. This is the scariest monster in D&D. This is the scariest monster because you and I have felt it. Sure, we don't physically manifest a monster that comes and tries to hug us with its harpoon arms with a 60-foot reach, but we still have felt that deep feeling in the pit of our stomach that makes this very creature in the Dungeons & Dragons lore come after you. It's scary, it's spooky, but in the end, it's only defeated when your friends come around and help you. They pick up their torches, they pick up their banners, and they fight on that hill with you until the lonely is gone, and you are no longer lonely. In the end, it goes to show that sometimes fighting a creature doesn't necessarily mean you rage as a barbarian and hack it with your longsword or with your axe. It doesn't mean that you cast fireball on it or use a wish even. What it does is it shows that when you come together as a group and you support each other, even the monsters that we are running from and we summon ourselves can be defeated in the long run, and they can be kept at bay. But always remember, in the back of your head, that lonely will come back the next time that you feel lonely. And that's why that's the scariest monster in Dungeons & Dragons. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked the video. Let us know in the comments what you think is the scariest monster in Dungeons & Dragons. Thaco's Cave, he's been doing a top 10 with his wife for the past couple of years on the scariest monsters, so go check him out to see what they think is the top 10 scariest monsters in Dungeons & Dragons. My TVs just went off, so I'm going to sign off and tell you guys to have a great day and to game on.